No one knew where the Nightingale came from. The distress signal had pinged quietly for 83 days, undetected in the endless silence beyond the outer colonies. It wasn't loud or urgent, just persistent. One soft chime every 38 seconds. A tone that sounded less like an emergency and more like a lullaby. A patrol ship, the Kestrel, picked it up by accident while realigning its long-range comms array. Standard protocol was to ignore signals without proper tags or encryption headers, usually just echoes from junked satellites or dead research buoys. But this one was clean, undamaged, still transmitting, and more disturbingly, it was moving. Commander Elise Reyes stood on the bridge of the Kestrel, arms crossed, watching the readouts scroll across the holo display. "It's changing trajectory," she murmured, correcting itself, not random drift. Her navigator Anders frowned. No power signatures. Engines cold, but the telemetry, it's like it's choosing a path. Elise didn't like that. Ships didn't just pick routes on their own, not without someone or something steering them. The Nightingale had no registry in any known database. No crew manifest. No manufacturing history. It wasn't even clear who built it. Yet here it was, cruising slowly toward the frontier line between human-controlled space and the dark sector, the uncharted void no sane expedition had ever returned from. "I want eyes on it," Elise said, up close. The recon drone launched an hour later, silent, sleek, and small enough to slip through the void unnoticed. As it approached the derelict ship, the crew gathered in the observation bay. The holoscreen blinked to life, a grainy real-time feed pulsing with static. The Nightingale looked like a hospital ship, elongated, sterile white hull, faded Red Cross insignia on the side. Old world design, Earth-made. Maybe pre-Exodus. "Why the hell is there a medical cruiser out here?" whispered Corporal Juno, squinting at the screen. "Looks like it hasn't moved in 100 years. "No signs of damage," Anders added. "No external breaches, but," he tapped to control, "no life signs, no radiation, no EM field. It's dead in the water," until the lights flicked on. One by one, soft yellow lights blinked to life along the ship's spine, flickering gently like candles. Not all at once, sequential, intentional, as if welcoming them. Then came the sound, soft, melodic, a child's voice singing, barely audible through the static. "Sleep, little traveler, drift through the stars." Everyone froze. No one was touching the controls. The lullaby crackled through the speakers like an old vinyl record, warbling and sweet, distorted at the edges with age or interference. "Sleep, little traveler, drift through the stars." Elise slammed the mute toggle, her heart hammering. What the hell was that? No one answered. Anders was pale, his fingers hovering above the console but not moving. Juno's lips were slightly parted, like she was holding her breath. "It's broadcasting on our secured channel," Anders finally said. "Encrypted, but it's keyed to our ship's ID." "That's not possible." Elise snapped. "We never pinged them with our credentials." "I know," he whispered. "That's why I said it." The screen shifted, grainy feed cutting to a close-up of the Nightingale's airlock. The outer doors were open. "They want us to board," Juno said quietly. "No," Elise said immediately. "We tag it, log it, and leave. This is way beyond our jurisdiction. Let Command send in a science crew." But her words rang hollow, even to herself. Because deep down, she knew Command wouldn't send anyone. Not out here. The Kestrel was the last line of active patrol before the void. What they didn't investigate, no one else would. It would drift, unanswered, unexamined, until it was forgotten. And that song, it hadn't stopped. Even with the audio muted, Elise could still feel it, nestled behind her ears like a memory, whispering softly at the base of her skull. She rubbed her temples and turned to the crew. "Suit up," she said finally. "Minimum complement. No one goes in alone. We get in, we scan, we get out." The docking clamps shuddered as they latched onto the Nightingale's port airlock. The outer hull of the derelict ship loomed beyond the Kestrel's forward window, its surface oddly clean, like it had been preserved. No meteor scarring, no solar bleaching. Pristine. Elise led the team, herself, Juno, Anders, and a medic named Lyra. All wore full pressure suits, external cams live, vitals broadcasting back to the Kestrel. The airlock cycled with a hiss. Inside the Nightingale was warm. That was the first shock. The second was the air, breathable, sterile, oxygen-rich. The internal systems were somehow still functioning. Lighting was dim and golden, like early morning sun. The walls were painted in soft pastels. A faded mural stretched across the corridor. Cartoon planets smiling, rocket ships waving, stars with happy eyes. "Children's ward," Lyra whispered, her voice tinny through the comms. The lullaby was louder now, no longer over the radio. It was playing through unseen speakers, as if the ship itself were humming to them. "Sleep, little traveller." A door opened on its own. Elise drew her sidearm. They stepped inside. The room was a nursery. Rows of tiny beds lined the walls, each one perfectly made, sheets tucked tight, little stuffed animals propped up on the pillows like they were waiting for their owners to return. Soft lights glowed beneath the floor panels, casting gentle halos beneath each crib. The air smelled faintly of lavender. "Jesus," Juno breathed. "This place is a tomb." Elise moved slowly between the beds, her gloved hand brushing along the rail of one crib. The nameplate read, "Danny, age 4. The next, "Lucas, age 6. "I don't like this," Lyra said. She was scanning the room with her med pad. "Everything reads normal. That's what's wrong. This ship is decades old, maybe a century, but the life support is perfect. The oxygen levels are too balanced. It's like it was just turned on." "Maybe it was," Anders offered, but his voice was shaky. Elise looked at him. "Any EM signatures? AI systems booted up?" He shook his head. "Nothing active. No central computer signature. Whatever's running this place isn't on the grid." Suddenly, the soft hum of the lullaby distorted, warped like a record scratching too fast, and then resumed, slower now, like it was running out of time. A child's giggle echoed from down the hall. Everyone froze. "Did that come through comms?" Elise asked. "No," Juno whispered. "That was in the room." They turned toward the source. A shadow moved just beyond the nursery doorway, small, quick, flickering like a candle behind frosted glass. "Thermals?" Elise barked. Lyra checked her pad. "Nothing." Elise motioned with her hand. "Stack up! We move!" They advanced into the corridor, lights flickering gently above them. The mural continued along the hallway, now shifting in tone. The smiling rockets were replaced with fading drawings of children, their faces more realistic, etched in charcoal, some mid-scream. The color palette had darkened, reds, browns, deep shadows. "I think this place was repurposed," Juno muttered. They passed an old toy lying on the floor, a worn plastic horse with one leg melted into the ground. Lyra crouched beside it, running a scan. "It's warm," she said, "still radiating heat." "But there's no heat source," Anders said. "No core. This place should be freezing." "Guys," Juno interrupted. Her voice had gone tight. "Look at the walls." At first, Elise didn't see it. Then, slowly, the illusion peeled away. Beneath the painted murals, the bulkheads were covered in scratch marks, dozens of them. Hundreds. Deep gouges in the metal, finger-length, human-sized. And over them, spidery, childlike handwriting scrawled over and over again, "Don't let them sing, don't let them sing, don't let them sing." The words ran across every surface, walls, doors, even the ceiling, etched in different shades of dried black and brown, some barely legible, others fresher, glistening faintly in the corridor light. It wasn't just repetition, it was desperation. A warning scratched into the bones of the ship itself. Lyra backed away from the wall. "This isn't paint," she whispered. "Blood?" Anders asked. Some of it, she confirmed, but not all. Some of it's, I don't know, organic, but not human. The lullaby twisted again, faltering mid-verse like a music box winding down. The lights flickered, and for a split second, every shadow in the hallway seemed to jerk inward, converging on the team like they were prey. Juno raised her rifle. We shouldn't be here. I'm starting to agree, Elise said. We've got enough to report. Pull back. They turned to retreat, just in time to hear the nursery door slam shut behind them. Shit! Anders ran to it, tapping on the control pad. No response. It's sealed. Override. I'm trying. It's locked from the other side. As if in response, the hallway ahead of them groaned, a long, low creaking like metal under pressure. The light panels along the floor began blinking, one by one, leading forward now, deeper into the ship. The song resumed, but this time it was different. Not a child's voice, a choir. Faint, layered harmonies, voices upon voices, singing in impossible counterpoint. Male and female, adult and child, whispering in perfect unison. Drift to sleep, forget the day where shadows sing and lights decay. Elise's suit began to hiss, her oxygen filter skipping, then recalibrating. Her visor fogged for a second, then cleared. But something was wrong. She could still hear the singing inside her helmet. Everyone fall back to the docking bay now. But when they turned, the corridor behind them had changed. It wasn't the way they came. The pastel walls were gone, the cartoon murals erased. Instead, the walls were covered in pulsating dark tissue, fleshy and veined, throbbing faintly like a ship-sized lung. The scratch marks were deeper now, clawed by something larger. Hung in the tissue were old tags, ID patches, scraps of tattered uniforms, none from the Kestrel. Most were unfamiliar. Lyra raised her scanner again. Her hand trembled. There are life signs, she said. Where? Lise asked. Everywhere, Lyra whispered. Inside the walls. The lights dimmed further, no longer flickering but pulsing, in time with the breathing. That was the only word Elise could find for it. The entire corridor felt alive. A slow inhale, a sluggish exhale, vibrating through the deck beneath their boots. Juno pulled her rifle tight to her chest. This is a trap. We walked into a goddamn living trap. Lyra stepped toward the wall. Those signals, they're clustered, heartbeats. Not human, but not synthetic either. She touched the fleshy bulkhead and immediately recoiled. It's warm, and it responded. Anders took a shaking step back. Commander, something's wrong with my suit. My vitals are spiking. A thin trickle of red began leaking from the joint of his helmet seal. Elise? He croaked. She reached for him, but it was already too late. Anders screamed. The lights blew out. In total darkness, the only things they could hear were Anders's choked gasps, a hideous tearing sound, and the lullaby. The lullaby didn't stop. Sleep, little traveller. Then silence. Emergency lighting kicked in, dim red strips casting long shadows. Elise aimed her helmet lamp where Anders had been. Only his helmet remained, slowly rolling to a stop. The faceplate was shattered from the inside. Back-to-back formation, Elise barked. Weapons hot. No one moves alone. Juno was already scanning the corridor ahead. Whatever took him, it didn't show up on thermals. No signature, no movement. It was just there. Lyra's voice trembled. He was bleeding from the inside. That shouldn't happen. Something entered his bloodstream through his suit, but that's impossible. No more assumptions, Elise snapped. We move forward, find a secondary dock, a shuttle bay, anything that gets us off this ghost. They moved in silence now. The lullaby had faded again, but the rhythm stayed, hidden in the sounds around them. Every step echoed like it had been measured, counted, observed. The corridor ended at a sealed door labelled Ward B in faded block letters. Elise reached for the control panel, then hesitated. Something was breathing on the other side. Not mechanically, not like a pressurized leak. It was slow, deep, and aware. "Do we open it?" Lyra asked softly. Elise stared at the door. Then, with a resolve she didn't quite believe in, she said, "We don't have a choice." The door hissed open. Inside was not a ward. It was a theatre. Rows of worn red seats curved in a semicircle, all facing a low stage draped in tattered curtains. Overhead, a dozen dusty lights swung gently as if stirred by a breeze that didn't exist. The smell inside was thick, metallic and sweet, like rotting flowers and rust. In the front row, things sat in the chairs. At first, Elise thought they were mannequins, child-sized figures dressed in old patient gowns, sitting perfectly still with their hands folded in their laps. But as her helmet light swept over them, she saw the truth. They weren't mannequins. They were mummified. Faces shriveled, skin stretched taut over bone. Their eyes, what remained of them, were wide open, sockets dried into dark hollows, as if locked forever in rapt attention. The song began again, not from the speakers, not from the walls, from the stage. A single spotlight clicked on. The curtains drew back with a mechanical groan, and there, standing in the centre, was a little girl. She was maybe 7. Pale, head shaved, wearing a paper hospital bracelet that dangled loose around her wrist. She opened her mouth and sang, drift away, let the silence take your name." Elise raised her sidearm. "Identify yourself." The girl didn't blink. She continued her lullaby, head tilted slightly, her voice pure, echoing through the room. "Commander," Lyra whispered, "the bodies, look." One by one, the seated husks in the chairs were turning their heads, slowly, creakingly, toward the team. Their dried lips began to part, not to speak, to sing. Drift away, drift away." Juno fired. The shot tore through the girl's chest and hit nothing. The image flickered like a glitched hologram. Then her form shattered into a swarm of thin, shimmering filaments, threads of black light that twisted into the air like smoke. The bodies in the chairs rose. Elise screamed, "Move, out the back!" They sprinted up the aisle as the chorus rose behind them, not louder but deeper, vibrating in their bones, threatening to replace their own heartbeats. At the rear of the theatre, a maintenance hatch yawned open without a sound. They dove through it as something unseen, wet, fast and hissing, slammed into the doorframe behind them, shrieking. The hatch slammed shut. And for the first time since entering the Nightingale, it was silent. The silence was deafening. Gone was the lullaby. Gone was the choir. All that remained was the frantic echo of their breathing as they slid down a narrow maintenance chute, helmets scraping metal, gravity pulling them into the guts of the ship. They landed hard on a grated floor, the impact jarring but survivable. Lyra groaned, clutching her ribs. Juno's visor was cracked, her eyes wide and unblinking. "Sound off," Elise said hoarsely. "Still here," Lyra gasped. "Juno's with me," Lyra added after a pause. I think she hit her head. Elise looked around. They had landed in what seemed to be a utility level. Pipes lined the walls, steam venting in low hisses, condensation dripping in rhythmic patterns. It felt damp, sweaty. She checked her pad. No signal from the kestrel, no telemetry, no Anders, only static. They were alone. Elise grabbed Juno's shoulders. "Stay with me. You're concussed, but you're not bleeding. Focus." Juno blinked slowly. "I heard my mother in that room singing to me." Elise froze. "What did she sing?" Juno hesitated. "It wasn't the lullaby. It was something else, a song she used to hum when I was sick. I haven't heard it since I was 6. Lyra's voice was tight. "This thing, whatever it is, it gets inside our heads, uses what we love, what we remember. It's sentient," Elise said. "It's not a ghost, not a malfunction. It's a predator." Lyra nodded. "And I think it feeds on the lullaby. Or maybe it is the lullaby." Something clanged down the corridor, a metal tapping, slow and steady, like a child dragging a pipe across the floor. They froze. Tap, tap, tap. Elise raised her weapon and gestured forward. "This way. Keep eyes on every shadow." The maintenance corridor led them to a service lift, still operational miraculously. The pad glowed softly as Elise pressed the call button. The lift groaned to life, rising from below. "Where are we going?" Lyra whispered. "Bridge, if it still exists. This ship has no AI, but someone or something is controlling systems. I want to rip it out by the root." The lift arrived with a hiss. They stepped inside, the doors closed, and the lights went out again. In the reflection of the steel walls, Elise saw a face behind her that didn't belong to any of them. A child, smiling. Elise spun, weapon raised, nothing. Just the three of them, breathing hard, suits illuminated by dim helmet beams bouncing off the mirrored lift interior. But the reflection lingered a second too long. The smile remained after the face vanished. Then finally, even that dissolved into steel. No one spoke. The lift began to ascend, slowly, agonizingly, the groan of aged hydraulics reverberating through the shaft like a sigh. Numbers lit one by one. Deck 8, Deck 9, Deck 10. As they rose, something changed in the air pressure. Elise felt it in her teeth, subtle at first, then more pronounced. A tightening as if the walls themselves were leaning inward. Then the song came back. But this time they weren't hearing it through speakers. They were singing it. All of them. Lyra's voice was softest, trembling, unaware. Juno's mouth moved silently, eyes glassy. And Elise's own throat vibrated before she realized it. Drift away, hush the pain and fade to grey." "No," she growled, biting her tongue hard enough to draw blood. Shut it out. She reached out and shook Lyra, then Juno, snapping them out of the trance. "What the hell is happening?" Lyra whispered, wiping her mouth. "It's embedding itself in us," Elise said. "Not just in our ears, it's rewriting us." The lift stopped, Deck 12, Command. The doors slid open with a sigh. Beyond them was not a bridge. It was a room of mirrors. Full-length panels lined every surface, walls, floor, even the ceiling, perfectly clean, perfectly still. They stepped out slowly, surrounded on all sides by infinite reflections. The moment their boots touched the floor, the door behind them disappeared, gone, as if it had never existed. "Where's the control deck?" Juno said, panic rising. "I don't think we're in a physical space anymore," Lyra said. The lights above flickered. Their reflections began to move, but not in sync. One by one, the mirrored versions of themselves tilted their heads, smiling with mouths that split too wide, teeth too white, eyes too knowing. They raised their arms, synchronized, and pointed directly behind Elise. She turned. A figure stood in the center of the room. Not a child, not human. Something wearing the shape of a child, draped in skin that didn't quite fit, like clothing stitched from memory. It opened its mouth, and all the mirrors screamed. The scream wasn't a sound, it was a pressure. A wave of raw mental force that slammed into Elise's mind like a freight train. Her vision fractured, colors inverted. Her legs gave out, and she hit the mirror-floored room with a hollow crack, ears ringing with ghost tones that didn't belong in the human spectrum. Lyra and Juno collapsed beside her, writhing, clutching their heads. Their suits' biometric alarms blared in warning, cognitive overload, neural desync, auditory hallucinations. Above them, the creature drifted forward. Its limbs weren't moving. It glided, like thought, like smoke. Its false child face peeled back slightly at the corners, revealing rows of needled black teeth. Not meant for eating. Meant for singing. It watched them, curious. Not hateful, not angry, like an astronomer studying a rare eclipse. And then, gently, it began to hum. The melody was worse than the scream. It vibrated the air in the way a tuning fork splits glass. Elise felt her helmet begin to crack from the inside. Her visor shimmered with lines of code, alien glyphs scrolling across the display like a song being written in real time. Lyra screamed. Juno vomited inside her suit. Elise fought back. She reached into her belt pouch, fingers fumbling until they found it. A pulse charge. Last resort. Manual detonation only. Meant for breaches, not exorcisms. She thumbed it on, set the timer for 3 seconds. She locked eyes with the creature. "I don't know what you are," she hissed, "but you won't sing through me." The creature paused, tilting its 2-round head. Then for the first time it spoke, not sang. Just one word, echoing in Elise's own voice from its mouth. "Why?" She threw the charge. The explosion wasn't fire or shrapnel, it was light. Blinding pure sonic white that collapsed the mirror room like glass under booth heels. The creature screamed, the sound rising into a pitch that no human ear should register, but they felt it. In bone. In blood. The mirrors shattered. The illusion broke. They landed hard, this time on real metal. Deck plating, rusted, cold. The command deck of the Nightingale revealed at last. Juno stirred. Lyra coughed. Elise dragged herself upright, clutching a rail. At the center of the room was the true core of the ship, not a control console, a cradle. And inside it, something was waking up. The cradle was biomechanical, part machinery, part womb. Wires like umbilical cords twisted out from its base, fusing into the floor and walls, pulsing faintly with golden fluid. Translucent membranes quivered over the pod's surface, revealing flashes of something inside, a silhouette curled in fetal position, twitching. Lyra stumbled toward it, scanning. "It's alive," she whispered. "It's human, or was." The creature within the pod shifted again. A small, skeletal hand pressed against the inner lining, fingers splayed, skin paper thin, grey-veined. It didn't move with desperation, it moved with intent. "This is the source," Elise said quietly. "The real one. Everything else, the voices, the singing, it's projection. Distraction." "The whole ship is its body," Juno added, shaking. "It's a nest, a siren." Lyra's scanner beeped. "Vital signs are mixed. It's generating signals across multiple waveforms, neural, digital, acoustic. Some of them match brain activity. Some match starship systems." "Are you saying it's piloting the ship?" Elise asked. "No, I'm saying it is the ship. The systems feed it. It feeds them." The thing in the cradle twitched, and from hidden speakers overhead, 100 lullabies began to play at once. Different languages, different melodies, all overlapping, all aimed at them. "Cut the power," Elise ordered. "There is no power to cut," Lyra replied, backing away. "There's no central conduit. The Nightingale is wired around this thing." Elise looked around. "Then we end it, here." Juno raised her rifle, but the creature moved first. It opened its eyes. There were no pupils, just galaxies. Spirals of light embedded in orbs of perfect black. Stars born and dying behind a child's stare. The lights on the deck flickered again, but not like before. They began to sync, with heartbeats. Juno stepped back. "Commander, my chest. I can feel it inside. It's sinking to our vitals." A pulse of force erupted from the cradle. Juno was lifted off the ground, hurled into a bulkhead. She hit with a sickening crunch, slid down and didn't move. "Juno!" Elise ran toward her, but the floor beneath her melted into shadow, turning to thick, viscous black liquid. It grabbed at her boots. Lyra screamed. "It's anchoring us! It's not trying to keep us out! It's been trying to bring us in!" And now they were inside. Not just the ship, the mind. The world fractured. Metal groaned like the bones of a god. Light inverted, shadows became solid, and solid things, walls, floors, rails, bled into air like ink in water. Elise staggered as her body was pulled in different directions, not physically, but psychically. The cradle vanished. Juno's body vanished. Even Lyra flickered beside her, appearing, disappearing, reappearing 3 steps away. They were inside a memory that wasn't theirs. No longer aboard the Nightingale, but somewhere before. The world reshaped into a medical lab, cold, sterile, white lights overhead, bright enough to hum. On a slab, a small girl lay sleeping, head shaved, wires protruding from her scalp, chest, wrists. Monitors beeped around her in soft, slow rhythms. Scientists in faceless suits murmured beyond glass. Subject, Alara 9 objective, neural wave weaponization through singularity infancy. Elise's breath caught. This was an experiment, she whispered. A child, modified. The scene shifted. Now the girl was awake. Eyes blank, her mouth opened, and everyone in the lab, doctors, guards, observers, not screamed, not died, just stopped. Time halted, except for the girl. She sang, and as her lullaby bloomed, the glass shattered, not outward but inward, pulled toward her like a black hole of melody. The bodies collapsed, the walls wept blood, and the lights began to pulse in the same familiar pattern, heartbeat, breath, song. The lab twisted and dissolved again, like mist burned away by a cruel sun. Elise dropped to her knees. She wasn't in a memory anymore. She was in the girl's mind, the part that survived. That grew. That consumed itself and was reborn as something other. Lyra clutched Elise's arm, sobbing. "We can't fight this," she cried. "She's not a ghost. She's not even alive anymore. She's a frequency, a signal that never stopped expanding." "She's a child," Elise whispered, voice shaking. "Still singing, still scared." Lyra's face contorted. "No, she's not scared." They turned. The child stood before them again, older now or just larger, shaped by time inside her own dream space. She raised her arms, and with a terrible, aching tenderness she whispered, "Join the choir, join the choir." Her voice was impossibly soft, like the hush of snowfall on metal. But inside Elise's mind, it boomed, intimate, inevitable. It wasn't an invitation. It was gravity. Elise felt it, the tug at her thoughts, her memories unspooling. Her first spacewalk, her mother's face, the sound of rain back on Earth, the warmth of a child's laugh. All drawn forward like offerings to the altar of this terrible melody. Lyra dropped to her knees, tears streaming down her face. "I can hear them," she whispered. "All of them. All the ones who boarded this ship. Every soul. They're still here, singing." "No," Elise gritted her teeth. "They're trapped." Lyra shook her head. "They didn't die, Elise. Not really. They were absorbed, notes added to the chorus. That's what she does. She remembers people into herself." The child being stepped forward, and in her eyes Elise saw them, faces flickering behind the galaxy-swirled irises. Anders, Juno, dozens more, hundreds. All frozen mid-gesture, caught mid-thought, held in some liminal prison of sound and memory. "You don't have to be alone," the girl said. Her voice came from all directions now, overlapping. Multiple versions of herself, different ages, all speaking at once. A child in a crib, a girl in a hospital bed, a teenager surrounded by wires. A thing of light and dark and sorrow. Elise clenched her fists. "You're not a god. You're just scared, and you've made yourself into a tomb." The lullaby faltered. For the first time, the creature looked confused. "You don't understand," it whispered. "This song isn't mine. I was born into it." "What?" "She wasn't made here," Lyra breathed, realization dawning. "The lab didn't create her. They tapped into something. She was just the first to receive it." Elise turned to Lyra. "Then the song, it's older than this ship." Lyra nodded, shaking. "Older than us. It used her as a conduit, and now she's become the next transmitter." The girl stepped back into the cradle, and the illusion peeled away, metal reforming, walls slamming back into place. They were in the command deck again. Lights pulsing, cradle humming. The real world. The final verse was about to begin. "Lyra," Elise said, "how do we stop the transmission?" Lyra stared at the cradle. "We have to silence her." Elise hesitated. "Can you do it?" "I don't know," Lyra whispered, "but I can try." She stepped toward the cradle. The girl inside opened her eyes. The air thickened. As Lyra approached, the girl's eyes never left hers, those endless spirals of starlight and void. She looked calm, almost hopeful. As if, for the first time in centuries, she recognized someone who might understand. Elise's hand hovered over her weapon, but she didn't raise it. Lyra dropped to her knees beside the cradle, palms trembling as she reached for the interface, a tangled knot of biocables and organic tubing. It pulsed like veins under her touch, alive and listening. "I can feel her," Lyra whispered. "Her mind's everywhere, not just here, not just this ship. She's been singing through subspace, reaching across distances we don't even measure." The child blinked. "I didn't want to hurt anyone," she said quietly. "I wanted to go home." "You are home," Lyra whispered, her voice catching. "But they made it into a prison, and the longer you sing, the farther you stretch." The girl's lips quivered. "It's the only thing I remember." Lyra closed her eyes. "Then let me help you remember something else." She plunged her fingers deep into the interface. Instantly, the cradle screamed. Lights flashed, alarms flared, and the walls of the command deck trembled as if in rage. The lullaby spiked in pitch, turning to a sharp, atonal wail that carved into their skulls like blades. Elise doubled over, clutching her helmet. "Lyra, whatever you're doing, finish it!" Lyra's entire body went rigid. Blood dripped from her nose. Her pupils dilated until her eyes were pools of black. But her hands held steady. "I'm overriding the neural pattern," she gasped. "I'm giving her silence, real silence." The cradle's glow dimmed. The song fractured, notes skipping, bleeding out of tune. The harmonies collapsed, leaving only the girl's original voice, trembling and thin. She sang one final time. "Drift away, drift away." And then she stopped. A silence deeper than vacuum settled over the Nightingale. The lights dimmed to darkness. No hum, no breath, no heartbeat, just peace. Lyra slumped to the floor, unconscious. Elise staggered to her feet and looked into the cradle. The girl was gone. Nothing remained. No body, no light. Only a cracked hospital bracelet lying in the center, inscribed with faded text. Elara 9. Elise stared at the bracelet, the silence ringing louder than any scream. The ship no longer felt alive. No pulses echoed through the floor. The walls no longer breathed. It was as if the Nightingale had simply stopped. Lyra groaned beside her, coming to. "Elise," she rasped. "Is it over?" Elise helped her sit up. "I think we stopped the signal." Lyra nodded slowly, then looked at the cradle. "She's free. Or gone." Lyra's eyes glistened. Maybe both. They took a long moment to breathe. The air was no longer warm or scented or filled with phantom whispers. It was sterile again, cold, thin, metallic. Like a tomb finally sealed. Elise activated her helmet comm, static crackling in her ear. "Kestrel, this is Commander Reyes. Do you read?" Silence. Then faint, broken. "Reyes, this is Kestrel. Signal just returned. Where the hell did you go? We lost you for 4 hours. 4? Elise blinked. "We've only been on board an hour. Negative. 4 full hours. We were about to declare you KIA. Elise locked eyes with Lyra. Time dilation, another side effect of the song. "Status green," Elise replied. "Mission compromised. Ship neutralized. 2 team members down. Request emergency evac and containment." "Copy. Sending recovery pod now. ETA 4 minutes. You sure it's safe to approach?" She looked around the command deck. "It's quiet," she said. "It's finally quiet." The recovery pod docked without incident. As they walked back through the Nightingale, nothing stirred. No doors opened on their own. No voices called to them. The nursery was as they'd left it, beds still made, walls faded and flaking. The scratched messages were still there. "Don't let them sing." But beside them, something new had appeared, scrawled in faint, childlike handwriting. "Thank you." Lyra stopped walking. Her lip trembled. "She's gone," Elise said. Lyra nodded. "She's resting." They boarded the recovery pod in silence. The Kestrel loomed ahead, its clean angles and warm lights looking more like salvation than ever before. As they lifted off, Elise looked back at the Nightingale. It didn't move, didn't hum, didn't glow, just drifted. Quiet at last. 3 weeks later. Location, Deep Archive Containment Vault, Titan Orbital Facility. The Nightingale never made it back to port. The ship was too dangerous to tow, too unpredictable to board again. After the preliminary sweep and Lyra's full neural scan were logged up, the Interstellar Containment Directive locked the derelict in a quarantine orbit beyond Saturn's rings. No transmissions, no approach, no records made public. Official status, classified contaminant, origin unknown. But Elise hadn't stopped thinking about it. She sat alone in the debriefing room, hands folded on a metal table, staring at the file in front of her. Subject, Alara 9 Project Vesper, redacted experimental singularity child, terminated, except they hadn't terminated her. They'd awakened her. The last page of the file showed a waveform, an audio signature. Lyra had pulled it from the song's final transmission. One long note, soft, imperfect, a child's breath, still embedded in Lyra's implant, still resonating ever so faintly. Not enough to spread, not enough to infect, but enough to remember. Elise had fought to keep Lyra out of isolation. She won, barely. But she knew the truth. Lyra hadn't come back alone, not entirely. Elsewhere, uncharted space, signal drift. In a far corner of uncharted space, beyond the reach of any patrol route, a mining satellite picked up a faint transmission. An audio anomaly pinged its onboard system. No metadata, no encryption, just a single audio file. The system flagged it as corrupted and filed it into backlog. But before it shut down for maintenance, the automated speakers played it once, just once. Drift away, drift away. The airlock hissed open without command. The lights flickered, just a little. And in the reflection of the satellite's window, a child stood, smiling. The end.